One rainy night in modern-day Japan, Truck-kun Isekai, an ugly fatso old man who never had the chance to develop plot in his entire life. However, since he saved the lives of 2 students, Truck-kun let him be Isekai in a fantasy world of swords and sorcery to have new excitement in life. Opening his eyes, he sees a man and a woman looking at him. Soon enough, he figures out that he has been reincarnated into another world as Rudius and still remembers his past life. After 6 months, he learns his new language, and their family maid, Lilia, finds him as an unusual child. One day, he spots his father, Paul, practicing with his sword, which captivates him so much that he loses his balance and hits his head. His mother, Zenith, then grabs him and uses a healing spell to make the pain disappear. Later, he finds 5 books in a chest box and learns to read. After another year, Rudius reads a book about magic in the room and learns that there are 2 ways to activate magic: incantations and magic circles. While practicing magic using incantations, he accidentally discovers that he can do wordless magic. Later that evening, Paul opens a book for Rudius, and a little later, he opens the legs of Zenith.
Nice.
Meanwhile, Rudius realizes the mana is overgrowing inside him and wonders if he can also overgrow the other stuff. Why do I have a bad feeling about that other stuff? Upon mastering the basic magic, Rudius decides to try out intermediate magic and starts casting an incantation that ends up blowing up a part of their house. Paul and Zenith hear the explosion, rush to the room, and discover Rudius's extraordinary aptitude for magic. Noticing this, Rudius' parents hire an adventurer named Roxy as his magic teacher. When Roxy finds out she has to teach a small boy, she initially doubts about tutoring him but eventually decides to see what Rudius is capable of. After explaining stuff that no one cares about, she decided to demonstrate actual magic to him. She shows Rudius a water ball spell that can cut a small tree, but it turns out to be Zenith's favorite possession, so she immediately fixes it using healing magic. She then asks Rudius to try the same spell, so he starts the incantation and cuts it short. Roxy finds out that Rudius can use wordless magic, and she instantly realizes his great potential. Later that evening, the Greyrat family gives Roxy a welcome party, and Rudius vows to work hard and properly use the second chance he was given to have a happy life. Rudius dreams of his past life until the night Truck-kun claims his life. After waking up, he hears his parents developing plot, and he wishes to have a little sister.
Out of pocket for that shit. Way out of pocket.
It's been 6 months since Roxy became his teacher, and Rudius's level has already advanced. He later finds out about demons and spirits, and that Roxy is also from the demon race. Roxy even warns Rudius about a terrifying demon race called Superd. They are infamous savage killers with green hair and red gem on forehead. After a year of training with Roxy, he became more good in magic use and never felt running out of mana anymore. However, despite training with Paul, Rudius is still an amateur in swordsmanship. One day, Roxy informs him about a country called Renoa, which lies beyond the Red Mountains. She convinces him to go to the best school in the world that offers advanced lectures about magic. However, Rudius declines, telling Roxy that she is the only master he needs. The next day, they hold a party for Rudius' 5th birthday, and Paul gives Rudius a sword as a birthday gift. He then starts talking about swords that no one cares about, so Zenith interrupts and gives Rudius a new magic book. Later, Roxy gives him a small wand with a magic before revealing to him that they will go outside to hold his graduation exam the next day. Rudius was too scared to go outside, but thanks to Roxy, he manages to overcome his fear. Upon reaching a plain spot, Roxy casts a Saint-class magic and asks Rudius to watch closely because she will only do the magic once. After completing the incantation, a large-scale storm magic manifests, and Roxy utters Cumulonimbus. Rudius starts chanting the spell, and he easily passes the exams after demonstrate a bigger spell than Roxy's. Roxy congratulates Rudius for being a Saint-class water mage, making him very happy. Later at night, Paul and Zenith are sad because of Roxy's departure, but Roxy leaves anyway because of her desire to travel the world and hone her magic abilities. Rudius cries and thanks her for everything she has done for him. Later, Lilia found out about Rudius's growing naughty behavior as she found some of the plot armors that Rudius had stolen a few months ago. The following day, Rudius goes outside the house with his grimoire, while Paul is busy penetrating Zenith's heavenly floodgate. While walking in the village, Rudius spots some boys bullying a demon child, so he immediately stops them with his magic. The child's name is Sylph, and she has green hair and elf ears. Rudius uses his water spell to clean Sylph, and she thanks him for it. Seeing Sylph with green hair, Rudius thought that she is a superd, but soon rests his worries because she doesn't have a stone on her forehead. Sylph asks if Rudius doesn't mind interacting with a demon, so Rudius tells him that his master was also a demon. Moments later, Rudius starts walking and Sylph follows him, asking why he helped them. Rudius, being the greatest simp he is, tells her that he will always stand up for the weak.
Stop the cap. Stop the cap right now. Stop the cap. No bullshit, bro.
After declaring their friendship, the two decided to play, but they have no idea what to play. Sylph then shows her interest in water magic and asks Rudius to teach her about it. Soon enough, the two calls it a day and part ways with each other. Upon reaching home, Rudius finds out that Paul is upset, waiting for him outside. Clueless, Rudius faces an angry Paul, who tells him that he punched a boy. Rudius tries to explain himself, but Paul doesn't listen at all. He refuses to apologize, which angers Paul so much, making him slap Rudius. Rudius then tells Paul that he won't apologize for helping the weak. When Paul asks about what happened, Rudius explains everything in a form of mockery to his father's pride. In the past 6 months, Sylph's mana has grown a lot, and she even learns wordless magic easily. Suddenly, it starts raining and they both hurry to Rudius' house to take a bath. Rudius decides to take a bath together, so he removes her plot armor and finds out that Sylph is actually a girl, and her name is actually Sylphiette. Sylphiette starts crying and Rudius keeps apologizing for his mistake. Sometime later, Sylphiette approaches Rudius, and the two make up with what happened. Zenith gets pregnant again, and everyone of the Grey Rat family is overjoyed. However, their happiness is cut short when their maid, Lilia, reveals that she is also pregnant. They immediately realizes what is happening, so Zenith gives Paul a resounding slap. Lilia feels guilty and decides to leave the house after assisting Zenith with her childbirth. Rudius then delivers a fabricated story, making his father the sole person to blame for what happened. Zenith, being the kind person she is, decided to forgive Lilia and let her stay for the sake of the baby, making Lilia cry in joy. From then on, Lilia vows to offer his loyalty to Rudius after saving her life. After 9 months, Zenith and Lilia give birth to 2 girls, Norn and Aisha. Despite Paul being a big scum, Rudius still respects him because he is strong. During their practice match, Rudius uses magic, but Paul easily beats him. Moments later, Rudius tells Sylphiette about his halted magic and swordsmanship progress, and tells his feelings about leaving the town. Sylphiette then cries and hugs him, telling him not to leave her alone. Few days after, Rudius receives a letter from Roxy telling him to seek admission in Renoa Magic Academy if he is having trouble with magic progress. That said, Rudius decides to enroll at Renoa Magic Academy, and asks Paul to pay the tuition fees for Sylphiette and him. Paul declines it because Rudius' swordsmanship is still underway, and they cannot afford to pay 2 students' tuition fees. Hearing that, Rudius asks Paul to help him get a job, so he can earn enough money for Sylphiette's tuition fee. Paul agrees, making Rudius feel very happy. The following day, Ghislaine, a beast race woman, comes to fetch him. Paul then knocks him down and sends him with Ghislaine. Rudius tries talking with Ghislaine, but she has him read a letter out loud because she can't read. It is then revealed that Paul finds him a job, which is to tutor a young lady in Roa City. Rudius later finds out that Ghislaine is the bodyguard of the young lady. Until Rudius turns 12, he will teach reading, writing, arithmetic, and magic in that royal house. Paul also forbids him to contact Sylphiette because he knows that she will become a hindrance for him to grow independently. The letter also warns Rudius not to touch Ghislaine because she belongs to Paul. Hearing it, Ghislaine asks Rudius to send that letter to Zenith, which he instantly agrees. After reaching the client's house, Rudius meets with Philip, a mayor of the Roa City and the cousin of Paul. Soon enough, Philip brings Rudius to his daughter named Eris. The moment he sees her, all his senses start flashing danger signals, but he made up his mind and went to her. Eris slaps him on his face, and Rudius slaps her back to teach her a lesson, but she then punches him and starts beating him. Rudius escapes, and after the chasing game, he tells Philip that he will take on the job because if he were to go back home then Paul will surely laugh at him. Moments later, Rudius decides to put up an act to trick Eris into wanting to study, which Philip agrees. He then goes to sleep and later wakes up only to find himself and Eris kidnapped in an abandoned building. Eris also woke up and Rudius tells her that they are kidnapped. Rudius easily frees himself using magic, and make Eris feel bad for not being able to use magic. Eris then asks for Ghislaine's help, but suddenly a bandit enters telling her to shut up. Eris's bad mouth makes the bandit angry, leading him to beat him to pulp. Rudius thinks that the act is too much, and he fully heals Eris's injuries. Meanwhile, Rudius overhears the bandits talk and realizes that it's no longer an act. Using his magic, Rudius plans to escape, and Eris begs him for help. He then makes her promise not to shout and use violence when talking to him. The bandits open the door with brute force, but they have already escaped. Later, Rudius discovers that one of Philip's servants is working with their captors. He took advantage of his plan to stage a real kidnapping. After casting a magic signal, Ghislaine comes to their rescue, ending all the criminals and arresting the servant. Once they return home, Eris accepts Rudius as her mentor, and he begins living in her house. The next day, Philip wants Rudius to testify that Ghislaine saved them to let people know that they have a Sword King-class person protecting them and show the Grey Rat's strength. After that, Philip introduces Rudius to his wife Hilda, but her response is chilly, and she leaves without uttering a word. Suddenly, Soros, Philip's father, bursts into the scene, searching for Rudius to thank him for saving Eris. However, Rudius tells him what Philip wants him to say, upsetting the old man in the process. After confessing the truth, Soros confronts Philip, questioning how he could mistreat the one who saved his daughter. Soros then asks Rudius to teach Eris about magic because she can't cast a spell out of her head. Rudius, however, suggests to Soros that it would be best for Eris to speak for herself. After Eris requests to learn magic, Rudius agrees to teach her about it. While Ghislaine teaches swordsmanship to Eris and Rudius teaches Eris and Ghislaine about magic, mathematics, and literacy. Rudius finds Eris sleeping and tries stealing her plot armor, but she wakes up and beats him up. Later in class, Eris got bored again, so Ghislaine tells her story about her shortcomings for not learning math. This makes Eris decide to learn math. The following day, Eris has no time off, which makes her feel angry. That said, they decide to walk around the town, where Rudius keeps taking notes of every goods. One of the merchants calls Rudius to show him a special kind of medicine. Eris attempts to buy Rudius an expensive book, but he refuses, claiming that she cannot give presents to others without her own money. That said, he suggests that Eris asks allowance from her father. The following day, Eris presents Rudius the vial he was previously interested in, which puts him in a pinch because it is actually a liquid that triggers plot development. Eris is able to fight on par with Ghislaine, and she compliments her abilities, telling her that she will soon reach advanced rank. Eris still makes no progress with literature and math, but makes a good progress in magic, along with Ghislaine. Rudius, on the other hand, completed the Doll of Roxy. Moments later, a woman named Edna comes to ask help from Rudius about Eris needing more time to practice a dance performance in her 10th birthday. Rudius agrees to help because he will have free time to learn the beast folk language. Moments later, Rudius writes a report letter to Roxy about learning new languages. One day, Rudius sees Eris running from Edna's class. Edna tells Rudius her concerns about Eris's future party, and she wants him to convince her to return to the dancing lessons. That said, Rudius decided to help her master her dance performance. Meanwhile, Rudius makes Ghislaine teach him about the beast folk language. Rudius receives another package from Roxy, which is manuscript and learning about the demon folk language. The following day, it is time for Eris's birthday celebration. Rudius is still concerned about Eris's dance performance. Later on, it's time for the moment of truth. A noble kid asks Eris for dance, which she agrees but fails to dance, and both of them fall into the floor. Everyone starts bad-mouthing her, which makes Rudius angry. That said, he takes the floor and asks Eris for a dance, and helps her overcome too much pressure. Rudius's idea works and they are able to dance without stumbling, making everyone clap for their performance. Soros, being the proud grandfather he is, grabs both of them and starts bragging about Grey Rat's supremacy. After the party, Rudius meets Eris's grandfather, who's staring at a strange ball of light in the sky. 2 years have passed since Eris turned 10 and she already reached an advanced rank in swordsmanship. Meanwhile, the strange ball in the sky became bigger than before. Moments later, Eris is busy planning secretly for Rudius' 10th birthday. Apparently, the Boreas family can't be so public about Rudius due to some family politics. If they held a big party like Eris's, it could invite unwanted misunderstandings. On the day of Rudius' birthday, Ghislaine tries to stop him from going to the kitchen. Rudius decides to go with the flow, and shows Ghislaine the statue of her. He knows that Ghislaine will do everything she can to keep him in the room, so he decides to take advantage of the situation to see Ghislaine's pancakes.
Yeah, boy.
At the very moment, the maid comes to call Rudius for dinner and caught them red-handed. Later at the hall, everyone greets Rudius for his 10th birthday. He feels overwhelmed with joy, and later on, Eris gives him a top-quality magic staff. Philip expresses his will to have Rudius marry Eris and become his successor, but Rudius rejects the offer. Later that night, Eris offers Rudius a quick Loki fun in his room.
Yes! 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 Yes!
But things did not escalate further.
No! No! No!
Realizing his mistake, Rudius apologizes to her and she forgives him. Nonetheless, Eris tells him to wait for 5 more years before they can dive deeper into plot development.
These nuts!
After making a promise with Eris, he suddenly remembers Sylphiette. Meanwhile, Paul and other adventurers are fighting with monsters in the forest. Sylphie, on the other hand, goes to meet Zenith and Lilia to give Rudius gift. Later on, Paul returns after killing the monsters, and suddenly weird clouds form in the sky. Roxy also sees the weird clouds forming in the Asura kingdom and starts to worry about Rudius. Some people are concerned about so much mana gathering at a single place and decide to spot them. The great emperor of the demon world also decides to trace the mana. Meanwhile, the legendary hero Perugius Dola sends his aide Aramanfi to investigate the anomaly. Aramanfi attacks Rudius after suspecting their involvement with the strange mana, but Ghislaine defends Rudius and confirms his innocence when a massive burst of light envelops them. Rudius, back to his old form, meets a glowing mysterious being known as Man-God. Rudius gets mad, thinking that the Man-God is the reason why he was reincarnated in that world. However, the Man-God reveals that he is not the one who orchestrated his reincarnation, but rather another wicked entity. The Man-God also reveals that Rudius was caught in a massive mana disaster and got transported to the demon continent. Then, he tells Rudius that when he wakes up, there'll be a man nearby, whom he has to rely on. When Rudius wakes up, he finds himself and Eris in a cave, but there is no sign of Ghislaine around. Then, he got scared upon seeing a super named Ruijerd, but put up some courage and greeted him. Ruijerd explained what happened to them and asked if Rudius was not scared of him. Rudius tells Ruijerd that he saved them, so it would be rude to be afraid of him. Ruijerd then promises Rudius to escort them back to their homeland. Soon enough, Eris wakes up screaming in fear upon seeing Ruijerd. When all the unnecessary drama subsides, they all become friends. The following morning, they keep walking in the plain rock area until they reach a village. The village guard, Rowan, refuses to let Rudius and Eris enter the village because they look sus. Eventually, Rowan lets them in after talking to the chief. Ruijerd tells Rudius that the Migard tribe can communicate via telepathy. The chief of the village, Raucus, comes to meet them, and Rudius greets him politely. Moments later, they ask Rudius where he got the necklace he is wearing. He then tells Raucus that his master, Roxy, gives it to him. Soon enough, Rudius finds out that the village is Roxy's hometown. During their stay, Rudius learns from Ruijerd that his tribe's ill repute comes from the cursed spears they received from the demon king Laplace, which turns them into savage killers. Moved by Ruijerd's determination to clear his race's name, Rudius decides to help him. The trio then departs from the village to begin their journey across the demon continent. Eris easily defeats the monsters with her new sword, leaving no prey for Rudius. She really likes experiencing an adventurer's life because she has always dreamed of living like one. The following day, they reach the city of Rikarisu, where the security more tighter than your crush's floodgate.
What did he say?
Realizing that they will freak out after seeing Ruijerd, Rudius dyes his hair blue. That said, they are able to enter the city without any trouble. Eris is overjoyed because of the robe that Rudius bought for her. They then decide to head towards the Adventurer Guild because they need to earn money to make a living. The trio becomes an official group of adventurers called Dead End. One of the adventurers provoked Rudius, but they decide to leave without taking any job quests. Eris is angry at Rudius because of it, but Rudius tells them that they succeed on introducing Ruijerd properly without freaking them out. When the night arrives, some adventurer accidentally breaks Eris's new robe, which angers her so much. Luckily, Rudius is there to calm her down and heal the injured adventurer. Later, while Rudius is asleep, he encounters Man-God again, who suggests taking on the task of finding a lost kitten. When Rudius wakes up, he notices that Eris is also awake. Eris wonders if they can make it home and starts worrying about Ghislaine and her family. The next day, Rudius accepts the job to find the lost kitten. With Ruijerd's third eye, they reach the entrance of the cave where the kitten is believed to be. Upon entering the cave, they spot the large kitten, but their presence is interrupted by some other adventurers. Rudius and his companions successfully defeat the scums and capture them. He then attempts to interrogate them, but is hit by one of them, which leads Ruijerd to kill him instantly. Rudius, however, forbids Ruijerd from killing again. After that, they take advantage of the kidnapper's higher rank to get more missions with higher pay. After the mana surge in Fatoa, Roxy checks the list of the dead people and feels relieved when Rudius and his family are not on the list. Roxy then hears a dwarf and an elf talking about Paul and asks if they know him. It turns out that Paul, Zenith, Lilia, and Aisha were also teleported by the mana anomaly. Paul begs all of his connections to find his family for him. Rudius's party's new job is to investigate the mysterious monsters in the petrified forest. They will get 5 scrap iron pieces for investigating and 2 iron pieces if they slay it. They start heading to the forest, where they encounter 2 other adventurers' parties. Ruijerd is worried about the young adventurers and wants them to help them. Rudius's party keeps on tailing them because Ruijerd is concerned that the young adventurers didn't realize that they are surrounded by the monsters. They are then attacked by the monster, and Ruijerd tries to help them, but Rudius keeps on stopping him. However, when one of them dies, Rudius was shocked while Ruijerd and Eris chimes in and save the remaining adventurers. Ruijerd gets mad with Rudius, but the other adventurers ask them not to fight with each other. When their emotions settle down, they escort them to the end of the forest, and they again depart to slay the monster. The other party fight with the monsters, but they are completely annihilated. Rudius's party slay it, and they return in Rikarisu. Their party is then approached by another adventurer, who discovers their scheme in taking higher-ranked quests, and attempts to blackmail him. Ruijerd, however, drops his disguise, revealing himself as a Superd, and threatens to kill the adventurer if he would reveal their secret. After leaving the city, Rudius reconciles with Ruijerd, and they continue traveling with Eris with the goal to return to their homeland.